Hello everyone, it's October 3rd, 2017. It's Tuesday. It's Harp Tuesday. And in today's episode, I'm going to go behind the scenes a little bit and talk about the gear that I use to create Harp Tuesday. And this is something I sometimes get questions about. People ask, well, what do you use? What sort of camera? What sort of recording equipment? And I think it's kind of interesting. So I thought I'd just share my experiences. I'm not a professional videographer. I'm not a recording engineer. But I can just share the experiences that I've had over the years with Harp Tuesday and offer you some ideas and suggestions. So I'm going to break this down to 3 episodes. The first, this episode right now, we'll talk about cameras. Then the second, we'll talk about recording and audio equipment. And finally, the third, we'll talk about software and what to do once you've recorded these videos. So let's talk about cameras. Maybe you want to record some music videos. Maybe you want to create your YouTube series, do some vlogging. You need to have a camera. I started with Harp Tuesday. I started with this. This is a Canon Vixia HFR100, which was a camcorder, so specifically for video. This was in 2010, I guess. It was great. It got me started, and then couple of years later, I can't remember exactly when, I upgraded to the camera I'm using right now, which is actually, it's a DSLR, digital single lens reflex, I believe is the acronym, a Canon T4i. So it looks a lot like this. This is actually my brother's Canon 70D, which is a more expensive, a later model, but very similar look. And these days, I think you'll find that most people, amateur, semi-professional people doing video, they will be using either DSLRs or micro 3/4, but in both cases kind of camera type things as opposed to video the video cameras. Just because now you can take videos with these amazing quality videos, and it's just I think you get much better bang for your buck with these cameras. Plus, you get a nice still camera as well. You can take photos. There is, of course, a dizzying array of options out there, and you can do a lot of research on the web and like, what should I get? So, again, I'm using a Canon T4i. That is a somewhat old camera. This is their Rebel line. So I think the newest is the T7i. And they're good cameras. The Panasonic GH series, so the GH3, 4, and 5 is the most recent, for example, are micro 3/4. I'm eyeing a Panasonic GH5 as a potential purchase at some point. Definitely more expensive, for example, than the Canon T5 or the Canon Ti series. The body alone is $2,000 American for the Panasonic, whereas you can get a T5i, for example, with the lens that I'm using, which is an 18-135 millimeter STM, for I think around $700 American, or the I think about $1,000 for that same lens with the T7i. What should you get? Wow. But I do want to talk about a couple features of a camera that I think are very important if you're doing something similar to what I'm doing, which is creating these videos where I don't have people here doing the tech for me. This is all a solo person endeavor. So one of the important things is an articulating screen. So this will display what the camera is seeing. So I can glance at it right now on my camera, and I can see the shot. And these Canons, right? They flip this way, so you can read it if you're shooting, but they also can flip this way, so that I can now, if I'm looking at the camera, this screen is now displaying it so that I can see what the camera is seeing. This is very important because, for example, I can set up a shot and look from behind the camera, looking in, but the harp's not tilted back. And so then if I go and sit down and I tilt the harp back, and if I don't have anything to see, am I in the shot? Is this a good composition? Is this a good shot? I have no way of knowing. So this articulating screen, I think, is super important. For example, I think some of the Sony Micro 3/4, the A series, fantastic cameras, but they don't have that articulating screen, if I remember correctly. So that to me would just be a no-go. This also had that screen that one can view from, not just from behind, but also if you're in the camera's sights, so to speak. So definitely look for that. The other really, really important factor, if you're doing any sort of music-related filming, is an audio input. The ability to plug an external microphone into the camera. Now, of course, for the very best quality, and we'll talk about this more in the next episode, you would be recording your audio separately to maybe to your laptop, whatever. But it's a pain to sync the audio and the video together. And again, for most purposes, it's really, really nice to be able to plug in some sort of external microphone to your camera. Now, the built-in cameras the built-in microphones on all these cameras, they're okay, they're good. I've posted videos on YouTube of performances where I've just used the onboard microphone. But it's not ideal, it's not the best. And we would definitely like to be able to plug microphones in. So both this EOS 70D and the T4i I'm using, and this old video cam as well, they all have a microphone jack. It's not wanting to focus on that, but so I'm reaching out actually there and touching that screen to try and change the focus. No, it just wants to focus on my face. Anyway, not so important, but wanting to make sure you have some sort of microphone jack. Potentially as well, maybe even some cameras have attachments that let you plug in XLR cables. But again, at that point, maybe you also could be looking at just recording the audio separately. But for sure, again, if you're just kind of testing the waters, nice to have that microphone jack. And also very important, that the ability in the camera settings to manually control the audio levels. Because by default, these cameras will all tend to adjust the audio levels depending on the input that's coming in. So if things are soft, they're going to boost the audio levels so you can hear what's going on. If things get really loud, they'll reduce the audio levels so that there's no distortion. But we don't want that when we're trying to record music, for example, especially classical music, which has these ups and downs, rises and falls, quite large dynamic contrasts. If we want to compress that later, and that's been a problem with Harp Tuesday, the contrast between my voice level and when I'm playing the harp, that level, we should do that in post-production. We don't want the camera messing around with our audio levels. So we want to make sure that there is that ability to set the audio levels manually. So those are two considerations then: a microphone jack and audio level control, and the articulating screen. As a bonus, for example, Wi-Fi control. I don't have that on the T4i. I think the T5i was the first one that had Wi-Fi control of the TI series. That can be really handy to be able to control a camera remotely, say with your phone. Again, in a setting where you're by yourself, you don't have a road crew with you, and maybe doing a concert and want to be able to start the camera remotely to record. Now, something to keep in mind with the Canon series cameras is the DSLRs, they will automatically stop recording at 29 minutes and 59 seconds. So that's, for something like Harp Tuesday, not a problem. For the most part, I shouldn't be talking that long, I hope. For a concert, it can be kind of annoying. If you got somebody running the camera for you, you just tell them after this piece, stop it and start it again. But again, if you're trying to do this potentially when you're traveling on your own or something, a bit of an annoyance. This is where, for example, the Panasonic GH series, they can record for as long as you've got power and space on whatever media you're recording on your SD card or whatever. So that is something to be aware of. That is potentially one of the advantages of a built for video camera, and again the smaller footprint. But I just feel it would take a very specific set of circumstances to want to get something like this these days, rather than something like this. And again, you could get a T5i with a, again, I really like this 18-135 STM lens for the Canon cameras. Again, I think 600, 700 US. It's not cheap, but it's great quality and gives you that ability to start doing stuff, start creating. It's fun, right? It's great. It's amazing the time we live in, how easy and accessible it is to do these things, to create these projects with amazing quality, and then of course to share them all over the world with platforms like YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. And again, I think I would close with the biggest suggestion is not to stress out too much about making the perfect choice of gear, and instead getting something and creating, right? That if we wait for perfection, there's a good chance we're never going to put anything out. And I think better to have created something and shared that than to have not, right? So I mean, it's great. Put something out there, create something, and take advantage of the fantastic and very accessible equipment that we have these days. So I'll leave you with that. And next episode, I will talk about audio options. Hope this has been useful. I'll see you actually in 1 week's time. Cheers.